Hey, welcome back to another adventure. This is a cookie from a pine tree that fell in my yard a few years ago. And, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I cut it up. And you can see how punky it is. Lots of holes in it. I used a piece of this when I made the router bowls. And it ended up, after I epoxied it, being a pretty good looking bowl. So now that I've got the lathe, I'm thinking I can pour these things solid with epoxy and turn them into some really pretty bowls. So stick around. Let's see if I can do what I think I can do. You never know. Okay. Garbage wood. I love garbage wood. It gives you possibilities that you never imagined. Okay, so let's make a mold. Now, I make my molds out of heavy visqueen. I know a lot of guys use buckets. The problem with buckets, in my opinion, I use all sorts of different size cookies as far as diameter, and trying to find buckets that fit without wasting a lot of epoxy, that's tough. So I hit on this method, and I use this heavy visqueen when I do tabletops. It works so much better than the melamine and silicone caulk and tape, and it's a lot cheaper too. This plastic is super cheap. This is the plastic that they use for vapor barrier under concrete. So it's heavy duty, it doesn't rip, and I never get a leak, provided I fold it up properly, which I try to spend a fair bit of time making sure that I do. So you can see how this goes. Try it. I think you'll like it. It's an easier, less expensive alternative to some of the other methods out there. So that's your first tip of the day. I hope you liked it and you consider subscribing to my channel. I do all sorts of weird, crazy things. Check out the videos. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. You know, I'm just an old woodworker trying to figure this out. I don't know a whole lot about this YouTube thing, but hey, we're trying. So could you help me out? Could you subscribe? Could you like the video? Could you share it with your friends? And more importantly, could you leave a comment? Tell me if you liked it. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. If you've got a better technique, share it. I would love to hear, love to learn. You know, one of the things I do is I epoxy all my bowls. I found my customers like the epoxy look. And, you know, I've had people say, oh, it's too shiny. Well, you can scuff it up and make it matte if you want to, or satin. You know, that works. But my customers, they appreciate the fact that it's food safe. They don't have to worry about what kind of wood I used. They can throw the bowl in the dishwasher and wash it. It doesn't stain. It's highly resistant to scratches. Now here I'm going around second time, and I'm leaving that tape about a ½ inch above the top of the cookie so that I have a little dam when I pour the epoxy. And you can see the bottom, nice solid piece of plastic that goes under the bottom and up the sides. If you can look back, I already did one of the cookies, and I've learned always do two, because every once in a while I screw one of them up. If you watched my video recently of turning two bowl blanks into one bowl, you'll see the screw up on that. And it was nice. I had two bowl blanks, and I got one bowl. Hey, it happens. It happens to all of us. You just shake your head and move on. So I'm doing two of them today. You can see I folded everything down, and I'm just taping around just to keep everything out of the way. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect around the edge, because we're going to turn that whole outer edge off. You know, these cookies aren't exactly round. I didn't trim them up on the bandsaw to make them perfectly round. They're pretty close, so we left them the way they are. So there's my epoxy. Now, one of the things I like to do, I like to mark on my containers how much of each type of epoxy I need. If it's a 1-to-1 ratio or a 2-to-1 ratio, it helps me from screwing up. I don't have to think about it once I've got those marks on it. When I start pouring, I just pour to the lines. I always start with the one that has the most epoxy and then pour in the lesser quantity. But this one is a 1-to-1 mix. This is tabletop epoxy from Let's Resin. They had a sale about a year ago, and it was a really good deal, and I bought, I think like 5 or 6 gallons of epoxy, maybe 8 gallons, I don't know. And this is the last bit of it. So we're pouring tabletop epoxy down into these things, and I know they tell you tabletop epoxy shouldn't be poured more than a 1/4 inch thick, but I don't have a problem. And I think it's because there's a lot of wood. It's not one huge mass of epoxy, so it doesn't heat up and give you problems. Now, I do use deep pour for some things. We're mixing the epoxy. One of the things I hear all the time on forums and stuff about epoxy is they get sticky spots that never cure. And the reason is because you didn't scrape down the sides of the container or the bottom, and you didn't mix it enough. Now, you don't need a mechanical mixer. You can see I'm just mixing it with a popsicle stick. The trick, and you don't need to mix it for 5 minutes. Mix it clear, and the epoxies, when they start to combine, they're going to turn cloudy. Keep mixing until that epoxy turns back clear. And at that point, you've got it well mixed. Then put your color in it and mix the color. That gives you a little bit more mixing time. I've never had a problem. The only time I've had a problem is when I don't scrape down the sides of the container just right. Now, in this one, I'm using mica powder. I love mica powder. I love the look. This is a chrome mica powder that I got from Let's Resin. Actually, I got it for free from points from buying epoxy from them. Now, I'm not sponsored by Let's Resin. Is their epoxy better than everybody else? No, it's exactly the same. I buy pretty much based on price. Right now, I'm paying between 30 and 33 cents an ounce for tabletop epoxy and deep pour. I go where whatever's cheap, but if you sign up for Let's Resin, their mica powders are pretty good. I like those. And when they run the sales on the epoxy, it's definitely worth buying. So, like I said, not sponsored, just a recommendation. And there we are. Got it filled up. You can see there's still epoxy left in the cup. We'll let that epoxy soak down. There it is already. You can see it. I mixed up the other color, the purple, and I'm getting ready to pour it. And then I go, I think I'll pour some more blue in here. There it is. You can see how it's soaked down in one area. So we're just going to pour some more epoxy in there. When it came down to it, I made 3 complete pours on these things to get them filled up. The epoxy just kept sinking down through, which is what I wanted. I want to fill all those voids in the wood, or as many as I can. I really doubt we're going to get all of them filled, but if we can get most of them, I think we'll have a really beautiful bowl at the end. So now we're going to pour the purple. We're going to do the same thing to it. And then we're going to let them sit overnight. Now, I poured the layers of epoxy about every 8 hours. When you're doing it, you can either pour right away, which I can't do because I need to let that epoxy soak in, or you can wait till the epoxy gets tacky. And I found about 8 hours with this particular epoxy is where it's sticky and I feel comfortable pouring. Every epoxy is a little bit different, so you'll just have to check it yourself. But there they are with the first layer. So it's been a few days and we're ready to unmold these things. I did pour a second layer on these because it sunk down. Actually works better when you do that. Get a small layer in the bottom, let it sit up, tack up, and then pour your second layer in it. This one I had a little white. There was a couple little spots. So I poured some white, thought that might look good. So let's cut these things open. And you see I put too much epoxy in it. It ran down the outside and made a little bit of a mess, but the mold didn't leak. That's a good thing. That's the nice thing when you're using plastic like this, is the molds don't leak. And look how easy this pulls off. And this is the beauty of using plastic for your molds. I'd say we had pretty good success. Hopefully this is down enough. Looks like some solid wood there. Should make it turn out pretty nice. And here's the second one. Just peel it off. There we go. Let's see how this one did. Not too bad. Got most of it. We'll see how that works out. We may need to add a little epoxy. We'll see. Let's get these things up on the lathe. We'll pick one of them. So, leave in the comments which one you think looks better. The purple or the blue. Don't know which one we're going to start with yet. We'll figure it out when we get up the shop. So we're back up in the shop. I think I'm going to start with the purple one. And if we're going to do a bowl and we're going to take this off, I think we're going to put the bottom here, which means I need to put this here. So let's get our center finder here. Let's find us what looks good. See if we can get a dot in there. Nope. That's not going to work, so let's see what else we got up here. Wonder if our China pencil will go through. Yeah, that gave us enough. Right there. Now we need a light so I can see it. Right there. Now we're going to use lathe screws to make this thing work. Never, ever, ever use drywall screws. Because they tend to break and give you all sorts of problems. And I don't get carried away with these screws. About 4 of them. Seems to work fine. I've never had one break off. There we go. Now let's go mount it on the lathe. That should do it. Still not completely round. We got a little bit more to take off. We've got it round. So now we want to bring this in and start our rough shaping. Cutting better. Still not as clean as I'd like it to be, but you can see where the epoxy's impregnated. It's looking pretty good. So let's put the speed up a little bit. I think that's about as far as we're going to go in. And I'm seriously considering leaving some of this purple. They go just another cut to get rid of this. Come into here. And then put an indent in here that I can grab with my chuck. Get this turned around. Okay. Pretty happy with that. Let's get our foot in here. Let's see. Good. And let's get our tailstock out of the way. Go to our square carbide. I think I want a little more. That looks pretty good. But I don't like this. It's too wide. I think we need to make this a little bit narrower. Flatten it out a little bit. Let's go to our straight scraper. Yep, that's getting there. I like that. Needs a little bit more. Looks good. I think we'll do a little sanding on this. Yeah, got a little bit right there. Take that down. That's better. Sand this thing up and see what, maybe, yeah, I think we need to put that little curve back in there that we lost. Well, let's see. A little skew. Yeah. Like that. I think I want to bring this up a little bit more. Okay. I like that shape. So let's pull this. Do a little sanding. And I'll bring you back when we're done with that. Sanding's done, and we got the blank turned around and the hub taken off of it. So now we're going to start hollowing. And we're going to see what this bowl actually is going to look like. Now, this is an end grain bowl, and if you've ever turned end grain, you know it's can be a challenge. So we're going to start out here with a 1/2-inch bowl gouge, and we're going to start turning this epoxy off. Now, up till this point, I have filmed everything and left it in real time. It's frustrating to me sometimes when I watch wood turning videos that you really don't know when they're speeding up the video, so you don't understand the feed rates and such that are going in. So everything up to this point has been real time. I know you guys have probably skipped ahead, and so be it. You know, if you don't want to watch the whole process, that's fine. Hit the high points. But here in just a few seconds, I'm going to jump this thing up to 5 times speed so that we can get through this hollowing pretty quick. You know, if you've watched one wood turning video, you've watched 100 where we're hollowing out a bowl. And we're just following the pattern that we did on the outside, so it's fairly straightforward. So here we are hollowing it out. I went to sharpen up the gouge. It's being a pain, but that's because it's end grain. Even though it's pine, even though it's soft wood, it's still tough. Now, I don't know why, but when I do bowls, I like to start and hollow the center down. I don't use a tailstock. I've never had any problems with them coming off. So we're just rocking and rolling through this. Just getting this thing down, taking out a lot of wood as quick as we can to get down to the fun part, which is the final shaping of that inside to make it look good. So there again, I hope you've been enjoying this video. I hope you'll consider hitting that subscribe button, leaving me a like, and even leaving a comment. You know, tell me what you like and what you don't like. This is not necessarily a wood turning channel. I do lots of different things and try to take you along for the ride. It's not really a teaching channel, but yeah, it kind of sort of is, because I show you my techniques and maybe you can pick something up from what I do, good or bad. Now we've switched over to carbide. You know, a lot of people argue over which is better, the high-speed steel or carbide. I have found that it depends on what you're doing. You know, in some situations, carbide works better. But in other situations, the high-speed steel works better. And you'll see me switch back and forth in pretty much all my videos. Carbide tends to work better, in my opinion, for roughing. It doesn't give you the really good cuts like you can get from a bolt gouge or even a regular scraper. But it works. Now you can see all the epoxy that's in this bowl and the places where we didn't get any epoxy. And we'll see how it all comes out in the end. So hang around. We're almost getting ready to go back to real time and finishing this bowl up. So don't get bored with me yet. I know you've been, 43 minutes into this. You probably skipped through and you've missed a bunch of the good stuff. But maybe you'll consider going back and watching the whole thing all the way through after you see the end result. So have a good one. You just clean up this front edge and then do a little sanding. Still need to do a little more. And I'm going to go to the carbide. Yep, that did it. More of the story, if one tool doesn't work, try another one. You know, it's funny how sometimes the carbide works best and sometimes the high-speed steel works best. You just got to try both of them. I don't understand people that want to argue that one is better than the other. I don't see that.
Okay. Okay. I think that's ready to finish. Take it downstairs and coat it with epoxy.
So here's the finished product. I didn't show you turning the blue bowl. Didn't want this video to get any longer than it is. It's already pretty long. Now, my wife likes the little bubbles or drips on the top rim. I don't know if I'm going to sand those off and redo it or not. Haven't decided yet. But here's the blue bowl with the white. Turned out really interesting. And here's the purple bowl. Slightly different design. They really, really look sharp, and they're very unique the way they're done. So have a good week, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.